Welcome to the International Human Rights Day conference on the 9th of December. Obviously, a teaser to the Human Rights Day tomorrow, where we kickstart. For us, it's about being enthusiastic about the day that is coming tomorrow. That is why we set space to actually start having the conversations today and to actually start the ball rolling in that context. It's just the energy that exists. It's the energy that exists within the objective that we want to meet. As I said, the theme of the conference is largely and simply undocumented. And just that word, undocumented. And we can find out more why and what exactly do we mean by undocumented, which means keep your curiosity, as we'll be addressing this with time. And quickly, before I can move forward, can I ask everybody to mute yourself so that we can all be audible? Let me mute myself and wait for everybody to be muted. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for being muted. Just so that we can kickstart now and actually to understand the essence and to understand why we are here, to set tone to what is to unfold for the day. Let me actually just welcome Ms. Noomi Anyanwu, who is the founder and director of AIHLI Legacy. But before then, let me just introduce our lady so that you can understand more of who actually is Noomi Anyanwu. It will take me a moment because her biography is this big and that large. So allow me to actually take a moment to actually read through. Noomi Anyanwu is, I said, the founder and director of AIHLI. He's a South African human rights activist, a social entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and obviously, and why we are here, the founder and director of AIHLI. Her dedication to community development and humanitarian work is backed by over 8 years of experience in both the private and public sectors, which has shaped her passion of addressing social challenges. As a versatile leader, she has engaged in various youth-focused programs, initiated community development projects, and contributed to businesses with a strong emphasis on solving societal issues, of which right now we are going to focus on that, one of those societal issues which she is aiming to solve. Ms. Noomi, I'm giving you the floor so that you can welcome us and shape the journey for us. Thank you so much.
And good morning, bonjour, and Saba to all those that are listening from far and near, and for our dignified guests and those that are truly have been a beacon for us to walk this journey with us. We thank you and for you to take this time to be able to listen in and as well as be able to participate in today's effectiveness. And giving the background story of AIHLI Legacy, AIHLI stands for African International Humanitarian Law Initiative, if you haven't known yet, and that has the acronym or synonym of AIHLI, which is standing for or sounding out. There's no way I could actually do that in any better way, but to do it in that simplistic way. That is to ululate and to express and address what it means to battle cry, as well as to have a joyful, expression. So the duality in that and why it is important to express that, it is to express a unified combat towards combat, to say that as we go into this battle, and it has been historically, we have seen or heard or observed with other traditional African countries that do that and facilitate that process in terms of being able to not to hear, how do we say we are going into this battle? They ululate, and in them ululating, it is to unify everyone to say we are now going into the battle. Upon going into the battle, whatever the circumstances, situations they find themselves in, they then would ululate in terms of the peak of the battle or whatever the case is. If they're overcoming, they express it to say, now that we have overcome, this is our victory cry. Or on the latter, we are saying, let us retreat and go regroup so that we can come back with a better strategy. And so today, as we ululate into today's session, as the first day. We want to say, as African international humanitarian law, we address thematic areas such as education, such as environmental conservation, women and children's rights, particularly looking at undocumented persons, which is particularly also why we are looking into this. We have had stories of individuals and mentees and mentors who have actually spoken to us and expressing their own personal experiences, including just shedding light on the importance of us facilitating this particular conversation further. It has led us to having collaborations and partnerships such as with the University of Stirling, just to express the need that we have for facilitating this particular setting. And it has been critical for us to do so because we have realized that the challenges that our people are primarily faced with are particularly on the very broad and not the definitive identification or definition of undocumented. And so as IHLI Legacy, including myself and Rachel and Arnold, who are the two interns that we received from the University of Stirling, apart from also the partnership of the conference and all other projects that we intend to do in future, it was our intention to elaborate on the context of what does undocumented look like. It could look like you being an individual who is seeking refuge in another country. It could look like you as an individual falling within the prescribed definition of being a refugee, but you not being able to identify yourself as one. It could look like you being somebody who's an asylum seeker. It could be you are independent, you are internally displaced person. And these are just avenues and spectrums that we are discussing. And I hope I'm still audible. Please do advise so that we can continue this conversation very adequately. All right, awesome. Thank you. And it is just to highlight those primary areas where we are saying, when we talk about women's rights, what exactly do we speak about women's rights from an undocumented person's perspective, but also looking at the GBVF continuing during this period and the critical aspects of it, and how we intentionally have started this particular education awareness campaign from September all the way to this period is because we wanted to highlight the critical areas that speaks and informs what does it mean to be an individual who's undocumented. But beyond that, because we have the podcast referencing For Humanity, it is For Humanity podcast stating, put yourself in their shoes. That is particularly why we had the conversations. We've been driving and initiating some of the conversation with some of our collaborators who are in the forefront of addressing all these different thematic areas. So these are the things you can anticipate during the conversation that we have built up towards this period in dissecting particularly all these avenues of thematic areas. And in the conversations that we've had during our podcast, it was to speak to specialist academics who are in these spaces to gain a better understanding so that we can educate and engage with the communities on the digital space so that we can have a far better, greater reach, and not just having it on in our own personal communities, but we are reflecting it from not just the South African perspective, but but the United Kingdom perspective as well as France. And we were giving these avenues and looking at how do we really start to have a continental and global community-based conversation about the primary challenges that individuals are facing that are coming to us seeking some form of assistance or some alleviation from these primary challenges. How do we start to spearhead conversations and start to initiate necessary important dialogues, and beyond the dialogues, finding practical remedies on the ground on how this community individuals can start to spark not just the necessary information base that is needed on the ground, but also to start to change mindsets relating to individuals that fall within these primary definitions. And the reason for that, I know particularly in South Africa currently, the environment is very much challenged because we are seeing a lot of subjective issues on the news talking about this particular reference, undocumented. And to a lot of people, it means so many different things. It can mean they're speaking about illegal foreigners who are in the countries. It could speak about people who are in the country who are undocumented and the challenges related to that is, how do we as a country, already facing so many challenges in terms of our own internal affairs, do we then deal with our borders? How do we deal in facilitating safety and security, not just for the South African citizens, but for all human beings? And so the conversation is for humanity, and to drive that necessary conversation, it is also to start to sow a seed so that we can start to have publications as well as practical projects, community-based projects that deal with these issues. We know that from a South African perspective as well, and it's not a unique situation for South Africa, I might add. These are subjective issues that are globally a common issue and subject. And so if you look at the data that is really needed to have an understanding or a clear view of what it really means for people who are in the country that are either migrants or falling within these different undocumented references that we are addressing during the conference, there is no data there, and that poses a primary safety and security challenge, but also an accessibility challenge. And this is why it was so critical for us to have these conversations, because we also know that as the intentions of the Department of Home Affairs from a South African perspective, I'm speaking from that particular angle at the moment, but also globally, that we are realizing that the procedural processes can be quite lengthy and challenged. So we're wanting to have these particular addresses and conversations to facilitate, to say, these are the outcomes of the community, these are their thoughts, this is just the start in starting the conversation, but we intend to go in the year 2025, 2026, and still having community engagements, workshops, and facilitating these conversations to say we are opening ourselves up to start to be understanding of what does it mean for us to have all these individuals in our communities. How do we practically find solutions that speak to the challenges that we are facing? Already as citizens, we have our own challenges, especially in terms of our decision makers. But beyond that, how do we bring in other people who we don't even know why they're here, or what are the circumstances that led them to form part of one of our communities? And this speaks beyond the areas of xenophobia. This speaks beyond the areas of the challenges and the stigmas related to those that are undocumented or documented. And in some instances, it doesn't even differ from one or the other. And so in the conversations that myself, Honored, and Rachel have had, it was to dissect particularly these avenues. And even with the collaborators as well as our partner, the conversations we've had was to direct it into this avenue of awareness and education. So from AIHLI Legacy's perspective, we are advocating for those that are voiceless, those that are in the front line and still facing many challenges, and those that are unheard of or haven't even been able to be identified in terms of accessibility to their basic human rights. And so I'll leave it here, and I hope that you will enjoy yourselves during our conversation, and that as more people start to come in, they will be able to participate in the conversations that we're having. This will be a recorded session, it will be available, and we will have all these amazing practical solutions to these issues. But it is also good to note, and I think Sir Alex will also just highlight that all the participants in today's session are young advocates within their own respective rights, within the communities. They are in the forefront of advocating for change and transformation. And that's why it was so critical for us to be able to give a platform or share a platform with them and initiate these conversations, because they also are in the front line of trying to have some form of transformational changes realized. And so these are our efforts, no matter how small a seed is sown. And as long as the harvest time comes and we get to see the realization of transformation. From myself to you, Sir Alex, I thank you.
Thank you so much for such thank you so much, Tombi, for such a very passionate outlook and actually setting tone to the conversations that we have today. I believe that the bottom line to the conversation becomes, what does that undocumented actually look like? How, from what angle are we actually talking about undocumented, and what are we actually picking from the conversations that we have? As she said, the element of this conversation is also about sowing a seed, so that we can have the different narratives going forward, and we can also be able to as she said, publish as well in that context. So beyond just conversation becomes more academic, becomes more knowledge sharing in that context. So thank you very much. Let's give you a round of applause. I'm sure there's a reaction button down below to actually I feel energized already. So thank you very much, Ms. Ndomi. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, mishaps happen. I hope that is solved. And and I just wanted to say thank you, Tommy, for the brilliant welcome and certain tone for today. Like she had said, or she had already indicated, in this work, there have been different partners who have already come together to actually ensure that this conference happen or take place in that context. Therefore, I said we're not alone here setting up this conference. And on that note, I'll introduce to you our conference partner, who is the University of Stirling, and that would be represented by Dr. Demin Etoni. I hope I said it properly because I said a tone, but I can also say e-tone. So depending on how it actually rumbles around my tongue. But before then, let me just give you a brief overview of his biography. Dr. Demin is a senior lecturer in international human rights law and joined the University of Stirling in 2019. He's the director for the Master of Science program in human rights and I say science or social sciences, but MSc, program in human rights and diplomacy in partnership with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR. Demin's current research expertise include international law, human rights implementation, UN human rights bodies, African human rights system, international criminal law, and transitional justice. He publishes in the areas of international human rights law and transitional justice. Demin is one of the three founding coordinators of the International Network of UPR Academic Researchers, or UPRAN, together with academics at BCU Center for Human Rights, UPRAN project at Birmingham City University. So in our midst, we have just beyond an academic. I'm going to say just beyond an academic because I'm looking at the angle that will be coming through. So, Dr. Demin, here is your note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for the introduction. And when I say tone and return, I do kind of accept most of those, but most people call me Damien, so that's totally fine. It's good to be here today. We're excited about this partnership with IHLI to be able to organize this two-day event. I think the team is really important. Undocumented. And these are people that are outside of the protection of the law and do not enjoy the rights that they are entitled to, as we do in many regards. In 2022, that's 2 years ago, the UK Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants did publish a report that indicated that about 215,000 children in the UK, that's 1/4 of the undocumented population in the UK. So we have about 215,000 children in the UK that are undocumented and not enjoying the rights that many others are. And this problem is not just unique to the UK, but across the world. And we would have different speakers today capturing different aspects of that problem. We do kind of really value the partnership, the ongoing partnership with IHLI, and the important work that they do across the board. It's really great to join this session today that covers a range of issues around undocumented, and the program kind of outlines different aspects of that, from migrants and their families to statelessness and smuggling and human trafficking. And it'll be really fascinating to really hear the different speakers cover a range of issues across the board. I thought I might just say a few words about the University of Stirling, which was shortlisted as University of the Year in the Times Higher Education in the UK. It is #1 in the UK for campus environment and third in the world. If you ever get to visit the UK, I would highly recommend you stop by Stirling campus. It's a beautiful campus. As Alex mentioned, I'm the director for a master's program in human rights and diplomacy, one of our leading master's program in the university, run in partnership with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. We do collaborate with a whole range of different international organizations to deliver internships on the program, including AIHLI that we have recently been working with. I understand there are many NGOs represented here today. So if you do want to collaborate with us in the future for internships or other human rights research activities, please do reach out to me. But I just wanted to take some time to say a huge thanks to Tombi for putting this together, and for Rachel and Anna and Alex for your coordination around this. Please do enjoy the 2-day event, and I'll be looking forward to hearing a lot more from the different speakers about this very important topic. We will be happy to work with the speakers for this conference to publish their papers in the inaugural edition of the Sterling Human Rights Journal that is coming up. So please, I'm sure that the organizers will be in touch with you on how to facilitate that process, but we want the proceedings from these 2 days to be as far-reaching as possible. And so we'll be happy to work with you to publish the papers that you put together for the 2-day event. So please do enjoy the day with the two speakers. It's a very important and serious issue that we will all be engaging with, and I look forward to hearing from the many speakers that are lined up to speak today and tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Damien, Dr. Damien. I'm not going to go to the Ethernet and tone for now. Let's give him a round of applause with our reaction notes. It's very important, like I had already indicated, emphasize the essence of academia in that context. He kept on repeating the essence of reporting, the essence of publishing, the publication, the essence of journals, and so on. So I was so right with this context, and we actually really appreciate you being here today, and we appreciate the partnership and the work that has been done going forward, and looking forward to actually see what we are shaping going forward in that context. So thank you very much. Like I said, this is not a solo ride. We not only did not only bring this together with our main collaborator with Sterling University, but we also have other key collaborators in the work that we're doing in today's session. Actually, we have Save the Children South Africa, we have Lawyers for Human Rights South Africa, we have ACT Africa, which is Act for which is actually Awareness for Child Trafficking Africa. And then we have Black Voices Austria. We have Danny Voice, and there'll be different participants from Danny Voice. We also have Refugee Law Initiative based in the UK. So to all the partners and all the collaborators, thank you very much for bringing together your resources and your time to this wonderful day. And before I move forward, I think it's very best to also introduce myself, as well as set the rules and actually tell you what is about to unfold going forward. Like I said, my name is Alex Kgotlaitsile, largely with a master's in social policy and management, and currently working for the African Union Women, Gender and Youth Directorate. However, here on my personal capacity, mostly not on that human rights and policy aspect of it. So I'm really looking forward to hosting it today. And remain settled, get yourself a glass of water or coffee, whatever that suits you or suits you depending on the weather on your end. And also get a notepad and a pen so that you can jot down some notes, you can jot down some context, some interesting aspect that actually come to your mind, some stimuli in that context as we have this conversation. And feel free, feel it easy, use the chat to also communicate communicate in that context.